So yeah, while we're waiting for people to join, I will just introduce myself. So I am Paula Quinsee. I am a relationship expert, speaker, and author, and I work with individuals and couples in their personal capacity, and I work with organizations around relationship dynamics. So anything to do with couples or individuals around how to have healthy relationships, how to manage conflict, how to improve relationships, particularly the longer we are together, our relationships can kind of get into a bit of a rut and we can become very sort of complacent and start drifting apart in our relationships. And then also in the workspace, I work with relationship dynamics in the workspace, so team dynamics, I do behavior profiling, conflict management, and emotional intelligence and soft skills, or what I like to call human skills training. That's a little bit about me. I'm very excited to be here with you all today. Terence, over to you.
Thanks, Paula. So Terence Tobin from Rich Ideas, an independent financial planner. And for me, I love financial planning and not selling you policies, because who loves to buy a policy on a Monday afternoon? So it's to talk about money, it's to talk about your finances, it's to help you make better and informed decisions about your financial future. And I know there's a magnitude of information out there, but it's to try and answer your questions and give you guidance on what's specific to you. So that's what we want to try and guide you with this afternoon, this evening, is tying up that very difficult conversations in your relationship and money.
And money is a big topic at the moment, particularly coming into the holiday season. In fact, even before we get to the holiday season, we have Black Friday sales.
Yes.
What do you think about Black Friday sales, Terence?
It's awesome. Isn't it nice to save money? But if you didn't need to buy it in the first place, did you really save? So, you know, it's to look at that. There's one or two items I'm looking for, which I've been holding off for months, but I've been saving up to buy them. And if I get the deal, that's awesome. If not, so be it. But we need to get be careful of getting caught up in the rush and the retail adrenaline of deals and finding these opportunities and you know what's out there in the market, and make sure it is a legit opportunity. I mean, there was something I was looking for last year, and I looked at a couple of the online retailers, and without mentioning brand names, and it was cheap for a while because it was in my wish list, and somehow it got a little bit more expensive the closer we got to Black Friday. Then it was discounted, which was actually the price it was a month before. So you know, I don't know. Sometimes we've got to question these things, but y'all make sure that what you are buying really is on sale, really is a special, and that you really need it, not want it. And that's a very big difference.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're right. The need versus the want is a big thing. And sometimes I have to say I'm guilty, and I have to remind myself when I'm standing in the shop with the item in my hand going, do I need this or do I want this?
Yeah, and we're all guilty of them. I mean, I also have wants, but you know, it's to try and make sure it aligns within your budget. And for me, that's a big one. And I know people love budgets, hate budgets. It's not a cost in stone thing. It's not going, well, now you can only spend 716 Rand on a particular item, but it's to know where your money is going. And if you can track and monitor that, we can make sure that your spending habits align. And yeah, we'll splurge now and then. I took my family out for lunch yesterday. It was a little bit more expensive than I thought it would be, but now we eat at home for the next week. So it's not the end of the world. We've got to live life as well, Paula. You know, got to have some fun as well, you know, especially after such a trying and interesting year.
And so our home situation has changed recently because my adult stepdaughter has come back to live at home again.
Oh.
So that is I think that's a topic we might need to pick up on one of our future webinars, is how do you deal with family members, whether it's adult children coming to live with you, or things like your parents, your elderly parents, or maybe your in-laws coming to live with you. And I think that could be, I think a lot of people could relate to that topic. So we'll leave that for our January webinar.
Yeah, it's definitely. So Paula, I mean, how would you see that type of situation? I know you said for a January one, but family dynamics must play a massive role And now you've got, so besides just being the couple, whether it's a permanent relationship or the husband and wife, but we've got this little bit of a sandwich generation with older children and then the parents. How can we manage that in the home?
Yeah, definitely. It involves having some, as you know, I like to call them courageous conversations, where you need to sit down around the table and really understand where each other's coming from, different perspectives, kind of what the expectations are in terms of contribution. And I'm not just talking money, because as you know, we contribute differently. So let's say, for example, you have your elderly parents who are now on pension or don't have a lot of money, which is why they've come to live with you, because they can't live on their own, you know, and they can't contribute financially. So how can they contribute in other ways to feel like they're pulling their weight, so to speak, and that it seems fair and doesn't build up over the years of resentment in that, you know, we're killing ourselves and you know, they just live and kind of as if nothing is wrong. And so it involves some courageous conversations, it involves putting down boundaries, it involves managing expectations, and there is going to be conflict, there always is. And it's how do you deal with it and nip it in the bud and not just sweep it under the carpet, so that that resentment and that anger and that, you know, that crops up like it can do, and that can cause huge family dynamics and even family rifts that can last for years.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Thankfully, I'm not in that situation, so I can't speak from first-hand experience. But a number of my clients, you know, the elderly mom lives in the granny cottage, and it's how do they manage those budgets in the family, and who's going to pay? You know, well, it's my mom, so should I pay for everything, or it's, you know, granny, so we're all going to contribute? And it's definitely having those type of conversations, and especially, and I found it in practice, is because of this extra role player in your family that's now dependent on you for so much, is include them in your estate plan. Because if something happens to you, besides your children, what's going to happen to mom or dad or somebody else that's living under your roof? So it's so important that we encompass everybody in our relationship, in our planning, both from the conversations and couples and money. Linking it all together can be quite a juggling act. So having someone like Paula or I involved in those conversations, I think can add a nice dynamic, and we can assist in making conversations a bit easier.
Definitely. When you outsource it to a third person, it can sometimes be a lot easier to have those conversations than you or your partner potentially feeling like the bad person or the evil person that is now, you know, being stingy or selfish or whatever the things are that the emotions that we can go through.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk to you because now is with the holidays coming up, and obviously people are starting to think about next year, but at the same time, we can't wait to just have a break and relax on a holiday for those of us that are lucky enough to be going away,
Yep.
if our companies are letting us have some holiday time. But saving and investing, because first of all, there's going to be spending, and we're going to chat about that first or in a little while, but then there's also the saving and investing. So how would you suggest people go about that?
Paula, they're two very, very different things. So in my mind, saving is where your time frame is give or take 18 to 24 months or less. So it's like saving for the end of your holiday. It's saving for the deposit on a car or a house. An important element of your savings is your emergency fund. So this is where you've put aside at least 3 months of living expenses in like a money market account that's available immediately to bail you out of trouble if that ever occurs. So you don't want to be taking any risks with that. Then the savings element. So for instance, I've been a bit proactive and I've started working on my 2021 budget. And in there are little savings pockets for like license renewals on my car, anniversary gift, because I'm trying to be the responsible partner. So planning a bit of that. But then, Paula, it's like easy to put aside $100 a month to take your wife out for a nice dinner once a year than to try and find the 1,000 Rand once a year to do so. So it's a nice little easing the burden. And then investing is now when we want to grow your wealth. It's now taking that money that you've worked so hard for and putting it to work in what investment solutions are best suited to the investor. because unfortunately, there's no such thing as the best investment. It's what's best for you. And then investing now, we're looking at the 2 years and longer time frame, and a blend between different asset classes. This means putting money into cash, bonds, shares, and property. And some of these are either listed or unlisted, depending on the solutions available. They'll all have different risk profiles, different returns. So not to get too overly complex, but it's to look at all the different puzzle pieces that make up an investment plan and making sure that they all work together, and especially chatting with your spouse around them. Because when they're going to affect the home, let's don't do it in isolation. So like a good example of that is maybe the children's high school or varsity fees. Talk about it together. Where is, little one going to go to school? What are they going to study? Where's varsity going to be? Is there res involved? Do we need to buy a car? And how do we align our saving and investment goals to meet those needs of our children, as well as not neglecting ourselves? For instance, we want to go on those nice overseas holidays when we can travel unrestricted, or perhaps the financial freedom day we all long for, and have a nice, enjoyable retirement. So aligning all of that together and reviewing it on a regular basis and having regular conversations.
I'm glad that you mentioned the license renewal thing, because I always forget, because my license expires in the end of December.
Oh.
And usually Home Affairs, or not Home Affairs, but the license department is closed or shut down or whatever. And I had a very big surprise about 2 weeks ago when I had to go somewhere and give my driver's license, and they were like, "Oops, sorry, your driver's license has expired."
Oh no.
So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I had not kept track of those things. So that is part of my planning for next year, is to make a note of all of those things so that I have them under control.
Put little recurring meeting invites in your diary.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and we lose track of those things. Paula, what do you think in the conversations you have with couples? Should we be discussing what we earn with each other, or should we rather be sharing what we need from each other to support the family?
I think it's important to do both, because as you grow and evolve together as a couple, your earnings are going to change. Hopefully, you're going to get promoted, you're going to get bonuses, you're going to be earning more than what you were, let's say, 10 years ago when you first met.
Yeah.
And that obviously translates directly into the lifestyle that you either are wanting to live or are aspiring to live. And sometimes even people living beyond their means. So it's important to know, because what happens, like especially now with COVID is a good example. If one of you happens to lose your job, you get retrenched, or you have to take a salary cut. How do you know how to be there and help each other and step in financially if you have to, because an emergency or a crisis or something is happening, but you have no idea what your partner is earning, you have no idea what your partner is spending their money on, and then all of a sudden you're in for a big shock and a big surprise, which does happen. So I believe that you do need to, and I don't mean every month you need to keep track and go, okay, what are you earning now? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You don't have to be like that, but I think you should have an idea, and you should have regular updates in terms of, if you get a promotion or a bonus. And what some of the discussions that you've mentioned is, what are we going to do with the money? Am I going to take a little bit and spoil myself because I've worked hard and I earn it and I deserve it? Am I going to spoil my family? Am I going to spend it on something? Am I going to put some of it away? What am I going to do with the money? So it's important, because it's part of being on the same page with each other. It's part of being in a team. A relationship is a team. It's a partnership. And just like you have those conversations in the workplace, you should be able to have them at home in your relationships too.
Agree with you completely. And the more open and honest we are with each other, the better it will be for everybody. This prevents, I think, issues in the future, and everyone can align. And like you say, at times of need, we then know how to look after and support each other. So I'm assuming then having money secrets, not a wise decision. Don't have those little things on the side, perhaps.
No, it's not good to have secrets, although I'm not saying you must now go and, share every minute detail with your partner. If you're going to go and spend 50 Rand, 100 Rand on yourself and, go and, buy yourself a new shirt or pair of shoes or something like that. I mean, it's your money. It depends on how you're managing your money. The last webinar we spoke about, are you going to retain your own account but have a joint account? Are you going to have joint accounts where everything goes in and everybody spends everybody's money and it's one pot? So how it would go with how are you managing your money? There's nothing wrong with having an emergency fund if you need to. So for example, as you know, because you've been doing wills recently, if something happens to one partner, all the bank accounts and that get frozen and you cannot access funds. So it's okay to have an emergency fund of some sort, and it's okay if you are taking some money and putting it away, whether it's to surprise your partner or whether it's to pay for those overseas holidays. You don't have to account for every single cent that you spend. But when secrets come out, it affects trust in a relationship. And that is a big thing because it can take up to 2 years to rebuild the trust in a relationship between a couple. And it's a very big thing to get your heads around.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I had a recent conversation with 2 ladies actually this month. The one's going through a divorce, and it's getting a bit messy. And who's in control of the money? Who's now going to start paying things? Who was the breadwinner? That kind of scenario. And unfortunately, on the other one, she's realized now that the way she got married, the marital regime that was used, is called an antenuptial without accrual. So although they are married, what's hers is hers and what's his is his, and there's no claim against each other. And she's been the good stay-at-home mom, put her career on hold, had little part-time jobs, and now things are unfortunately getting a bit messy at home. And she's realized she has no assets because everything has been in her husband's name. So I do feel strongly that we're our own person. Have joint assets, build things together, and it's not to try and be devious to your spouse, but also look after yourself, especially like you've said in times of need. Maybe it's medical emergencies or unfortunately at death. Liquidity is a massive one. So having your own money, also we're all independent beings. Like you said, it's not to now go home tonight and go, well, I bought this or I spent that to the absolute cent. You want a bit of that freedom, and then possibly having that joint account where you pay the bond and the water and lights and buy the food from does make sense.
Yeah, definitely. And we also spoke last time around the different ways that we contribute to a relationship, and money is one of those ways that we contribute. I call them the relationship currencies. And that, that example that you mentioned about that person being a stay-at-home mom, well, she's contributed in so many different ways to the upkeep of the household and the family and the running of the household and all of those kind of things. And, that is equally important to the financial contribution, because without that, the household would not exist. It would not run the way it is. It wouldn't be a home.
Yeah. The financial contribution is the easy part. Some men get off way too easy, and I hope no one takes a hit out on me after that, but some men get away with it way too easy. I think during lockdown, especially level 5, it was wonderful being at home with my wife and daughter, but it did get a bit challenging after a while. So yeah, we understand and appreciate that. And there's tremendous value, like you said, on what each person does. Like you said, your husband does a lot of the cooking, virtually all of it, which frees you up to do what you do. And it's always balancing that. But as long as everyone gives 100% all the time, as often as they can, the relationship will be sound.
Yeah, and most importantly, don't keep score as to who's doing what. So, but you do this, oh no, but you do that, because that is just going to cause problems in the relationship. It's going to get toxic and it's going to get ugly and it's going to build resentment, and eventually your relationship will break down.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you in terms of how important is buying luxury items versus buying property as a couple in your 30s, or is renting a better option?
Oh, that's a great one. Look, in your 30s, especially if there's no children, there could be a lot of flexibility required, both from a careers perspective, location. You might not want to get tied down. So owning property is fantastic. It is a good investment. Be careful of the hidden fees. I am a little bit worried of things today where interest rates are at a 50 to 60-year low, that we're not factoring in future interest rate increases. So I think once you've got your needs taken care of, you know that you're investing a good percentage of your income, you're taking care of the emergency fund, you've got the needs covered. Yes, enjoy life. I mean, we all have to buy a luxury here or there. And for many people, owning their own home is not a necessity. They don't mind renting because they're going to change jobs every 5 years. I believe, Paula, we change our careers between 7 and 10 times in our lifetime. So perhaps being tied down, I mean, I've got the same situation now. Couple's been offered an amazing career opportunity. They're in Joburg. This is down in Cape Town. It's now the sale of the house. It's buying a new house, etc. So look at what provides you the safety, the security, and the stability. For my wife, she wanted us to own a home before we had a family. That was fine. I respect that, and that's what we've done. I'm happy to rent. If I have to move every 5 to 7 years, yes, it's stressful. I'm not sure we're on the top 5 list of stresses it is, but it's definitely not a fun experience. But you get to go through something new and go and live somewhere new, and maybe that's cool. But yeah, look at it in your situation, and then be fluid and dynamic about it. Because life, you can't forecast life for the next 30 to 50 years. So let's make a plan, let's put it in place, like the ownership versus rental, weigh up all the costs, the pros and cons, and see what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, well, moving house is one of the top 5 stresses that a relationship goes through, next to divorce, changing jobs, death, obviously not necessarily your partner, but experiencing a death, a very close death to you, and then birth of a child as well.
Yes, very disruptive.
And more so now also job losses, especially with what's going on. And funny enough, with the new gig economy, as people are calling it, you know, as people are becoming more freelancing or consulting or owning their own businesses because of job markets and stability and security, and that we will potentially have more than one job at the same time because of potentially the need to have more than one job to earn the money we need, or because we are fulfilling different roles in different positions, locally and or globally.
Paula, I've just received a message. I think I'd like us to unpack it a bit together, especially with all the conversations you have with couples. This person says they have a secret slush fund, not an emergency fund. Is this a good decision?
Well, I suppose it depends on the difference between slush fund and emergency fund, because they could be one and the same thing. So first of all, what is your interpretation or your meaning of slush fund? And I guess, what is your intention behind it? Are you keeping it as a back foot out the back door? You know, that it's an escape route or exit plan, exit strategy? Or is it to take care of your own financial needs should something happen unfortunate, and you have to look after yourself and fend for yourself?
Yeah. I think it's very important. I don't know about it being a secret, but definitely having that emergency fund is very important. And this is where it is looking after yourself. I'm the eternal optimist, so hopefully you're looking after yourself, not to make a duck out the back door, but it's to provide in times of need and in times of, you know, when you need, the situation arises that you need some finances. So I'm hoping that you're rather going towards the emergency fund that both of you know about than a secret slush fund.
Cool. If anybody does have any questions, please do feel free to post them in the chat group or send them either to Terence or myself, and we will unpack them as we go. We obviously want you to get value out of today and walk away with your questions answered, or just with you having the insights that you were looking for from today. Now, Terence, this time of the year, the risk is obviously overspend and splurge on Christmas and holidays and stuff like that. How do you ensure that we don't end up with a January situation?
It goes back to the budget. And nice, keep it simple, possibly even use an envelope system. So, on holiday, you're going to need money for petrol, toll gates, some entertainment, some food, and possibly it is withdraw it out and literally put it in envelopes and label it. And that is it. That is what you have put aside for your entertainment, your enjoyment, and stick to it. The worst thing I've seen happen is where we take on extra debt, or we've now made great inroads this year on debt reduction, and then we spend it all back again on booze and parties. So by no means am I saying don't have fun, but definitely keep it in line with affordability, sustainability, track it. When you're on holiday, it's very easy to overspend. And yeah, make sure that you either track it via maybe the messages that the bank sends you to confirm those transactions that they've gone through, or once a week log into your internet banking and just see that everything aligns to what you thought you were going to spend. And if you start getting close to it, you may have to make that uncomfortable decision and start saying no to things to try and prevent some of the January. Remember, school fees are due and medical aids is still going to run and all those other debit orders, and you don't want to start bouncing things which then could also negatively affect your credit profile. So if it is buying that new house in your 30s next year, you don't want to have a few bounced debit orders in January derail your bond application. So it's that, and then it's, even if it's not now, and having it set up now, is making sure that you do then set up your annual budget. And it is putting money aside for December. So once again, maybe it's 1,000 or 2,000 Rand a month, that come December, you now have a nice pot of 15, 20, 30,000 Rand, and that's what you use for your holiday, and that's it. So see what works best for you. I like to swipe for everything because then I can track everything and I can see where it all aligns. And there's a great free app you can use called 22/7. And it's safe, it's secure, it links with your banking profile if you wish, and you can monitor your spending live. You can put little limits on it. It'll pop up notifications for you if you start getting too close. So you want to make sure you keep that all in line and keep it in track. And as Paula says, chat to your partner. Make sure that you both know what you're spending.
Yeah, and that's a good, in fact, I think I need to download that app because we're about to head off to, well, it's a bit of a working holiday. I'm going to be working from Cape Town for a few days, but at the same time, we've built in some flexibility and some free days that we can go and, just take a bit of a break in that. And in fact, just this morning, I printed out a schedule of the 10 days that we're away so we can kind of plan where we're going to go, places that we're going to see, because some places you actually have to book to go to those places. And so that's what we're going to be doing tonight. In fact, after the session, is we're going to be sitting down and kind of planning the days and where we're going, and kind of keep track of a bit of our budget and stuff. Yeah. So I might have to look at that. You'll have to post the link to that app that you were talking about, because I think I'm going to go and explore that tonight for myself as well.
I will definitely do that.
So I have another question for you. It is, yes, what is the best way to invest for the future? For example, a 5-year investment plan that can assist with building yourself financially for the future.
Oh, Paula, so I always want to go back to a person's risk profile to make sure that what investment funds we use align to that. Make sure it is as tax efficient as possible. So we want to pay Caesar what is due, but not too much. And then make sure it is sustainable from an affordability point of view. So is it in your budget? And probably the best one for every single South African is a tax-free savings account. And that, doing it through an investment company, not through your bank. Although I know the banks feel very safe because the interest rate is guaranteed and certain, 9 out of 10 times that interest rate is below inflation, which is your cost of living. And if you are not at least outperforming inflation as a minimum, your money is not actually growing. So it's to look at what investments you've got set up. And if it's 5-year, that's a nice medium-term scenario. look at a tax-free account. However, bear in mind that any withdrawals you may take out of that tax-free account will affect how much you can put back in the future. So using a tax-free account is a good one. Using a normal investment account, which can have unit trusts or ETFs inside, is always a great option. And then having an element of offshore exposure. You want to buy into the big companies that are dominating the world, as South Africa accounts for around about 0.6% of the global economy. We're very, very small. So make sure that your money can fly the world even if you can't, so that we can get you as much possible growth as possible, but keeping it in mind of what will ensure you still can sleep well at night, so that you can handle that journey of your investment.
Great. And then another question has just come through for you. What is the best option to choose from when lending money with a lower interest rate from the bank to build yourself personally or for a business?
Yeah, that is a very interesting one. Because interest rates are so low, taking on debt is very dangerous. Make sure that you're certain on what it's for. Starting a business on debt, as long as there's a fantastic book called The Lean Startup, and it's trying to get you to start your business with as little as possible, a minimum viable product. If you can go and buy one thing and sell it to one person, use the profits to now buy two things to sell it to two people, as opposed to filling up your garage with lots of stock and hoping you can sell it to lots and lots of people. So I would be very hesitant to take on big debt to fund a business. It's try and keep it as low cost, as cheap as possible. Your break-even point will be quicker. Rather use the debt to buy an asset, for instance, property that can appreciate, or if it's necessary, things like vehicles, because you need them for work and for lifestyle, but keep them something that's within your budget. And then lastly, funding for education is critical. The best investment you can make is in yourself and your education. So if you need to take on a bit of debt to study further, because it's going to help you move up in the corporate ladder or start that business on a better footing, that could be a good spend of your money. Again, they tie it in with what is your goals, what's your vision, and what is your intention. That would be very important.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody's situation is different and unique. So it really is around the kind of life and lifestyle that you aspire to live or want to live, and can your money match that?
Yes. Paula, when I have chats with clients, especially those that have built significant portfolios or wealth and they haven't always shared things with each other, how do we deal with money trust issues in a relationship and those type of conversations? What would be your guidance for that?
Yeah. So I would first of all want to understand where the trust issue is coming from. Why does this person not feel comfortable talking to their partner about money? Is it because it's come from childhood, because that's where we learn our money values from, and our money, our association and interpretation of money and how to deal with money? So if we didn't have comfortable money conversations growing up, it may potentially be difficult to have money conversations with our partner. Or has something happened in the relationship that has now caused my partner to mistrust, or for me to mistrust my partner? So for one example recently that I was working with is there was a gambling situation with a couple that I was working with, and obviously that caused huge trust issues and caused a lot of anxiety and stress, and so we had to work around that. And addictions of all sorts is a coping mechanism for something else, and it's getting to underneath what is the coping mechanism. Why is this person needing this or behaving in this way or having to do this? What are they trying to fulfill? What is the need or the missing thing? And it's the same with shopping. Often when people are spenders and they go and they're shopping all the time, it's because they're trying to fill a void. They're going and they're shopping, and in that moment it feels all exciting and smells new and shiny and all of those things, and it looks wonderful, but then it goes in the cupboard and the price tag is still on there a year later, you know, those kind of things, because there's an underlying thing. So I would want to get to grips and understanding what it is first, where is it coming from, and then start addressing it.
So how can we have that conversation with our partner if we start feeling there's some secrets and there's some uncertainty, and you know, how do we raise that in a safe and comfortable way?
So first of all, if you are able to have the conversation yourselves, because often this is a very tricky conversation that can end up being reactive and defensive and finger pointing and blaming and keeping score, and it can get out of hand. So if you feel that you aren't able to have this conversation, I'd definitely say go and find someone to help you, a professional, to help you have the conversation and mediate the process for you. And I would then, you know, as kind of start with leveling the playing fields in terms of understanding where each person is coming from, what is going on for them, how are they feeling about it, what is their meaning, association, interpretation when it comes to money and secrets and, you know, those kind of things, and trust issues. And then what are the actions that we need to take to shift from mistrust to start trusting again, which is a process. As I said, trust, it can take up to 2 years to rebuild the trust in a relationship.
That is a very, very long time. And now, Paula, I mean, if I'm the person in the relationship and I keep sharing and sharing, and I'll ask my spouse and she gives little nuggets of information, but not enough, is that when it's now approaching that professional to assist us? So how do I have that conversation and go, you know, I don't feel we're being open and honest, so let's go find someone that's going to help us be open and honest.
Yeah, and it's often it's not what we say, it's how we say it.
Yeah.
So when we start using the you word, yeah, but you never tell me anything and you always keep secrets, that's like a red flag to a bull in a china shop. It's just going to get defensive and reactive. So I think it's more about how you position the conversation and how you approach it, to say, let us, so the language is important, the us, the we, the ours. Let us go and equip ourselves with better communication skills. Let us go and grow together as a couple and learn how to be there for each other and how to create a safe relational space that we can start having these conversations. And it's about being willing to step into that vulnerable space and be, you know, have courage, be transparent and open and honest without fear of retaliation or without fear of it's going to be used against me or thrown in my face.
Yeah, very true. You have a safe environment to do so.
Definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay. I see another question for you. And this actually comes up quite often, is having a joint bank account easier, or should we have our own?
Yeah, definitely have your own. As you said before, there's a number of reasons I've seen practically, especially from a divorce situation, sadly, from a death point of view. But if you've now got an investment set up and you need to take money out of it, the majority of service providers are only going to pay out those funds to an account that's in your name. So have something separate. It doesn't have to be a fancy account with lots of bells and whistles and loyalty programs. Get something that's cheap and easy, that has a bank card linked to it, and fund that so that you've got the flexibility yourself. The banks actually are not really doing joint accounts. They're normally an account in one person's name with the other partner or spouse having signing power. Now, that's often dubbed power of attorney. And Paula, an interesting one with that is that power of attorney will fall away when the person giving it no longer understands the consequences of their actions. So if they are now suffer dementia, that power of attorney will actually fall away because they don't understand what they have given away. And at time of death, it immediately falls away. So a surviving spouse now might have that situation where their emergency fund is in a great account and they've got no access to it. And they have to wait for an executor to be appointed. and for those funds to become available. So I highly recommend each person has their own bank account. And that also shows the kids a good habit, because you want to help them start setting up their banking journey, help them get accounts, give them their allowance or pocket money, however you might do it, so that they understand the transactional facilities they've got, how to read the bank statements they get, you know, and when money comes out, why there's a minus, when interest is earned, it's got a positive. So there's a lot of learnings that can happen from that, but definitely have your own bank account.
Yeah, that just reminds me of a situation a friend of mine is going through right now at the moment, where his father has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, and they are currently going through that situation right now to try and power of attorney or in place to manage the finances, because he's just not in a position to make sound financial decisions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be very taxing and stressful on everybody involved.
Indeed. Paula, how should a couple that are now no longer together, so unfortunately they've split up, either divorce, for instance, there's children involved, how do they continue having these good financial conversations, potentially from a maintenance point of view, or who pays what for the children, that it's again in a nice respectful manner? How do they outline that? Is it always getting a professional involved, or what tips can you give that they can do it on their own?
It would depend on how volatile the divorce has been or the breakup has been. Generally, lawyers will advocate for mediators to be involved, and the law or the court will obviously prescribe in terms of earnings, and you have to submit your assets and liabilities and expenses, and to determine who can obviously pay for what. But I generally, when I work with couples that come and look for assistance, is first of all put down what are all the expenses as far as the child, because it's about the child's best interests at the end of the day. And you are the two adults here, and they are the innocent victims. So instead of dragging them into the middle and playing kids like a chess pawn in between the parents, it's about the two of you sitting down and going, right, these are all the costs in terms of school fees and medical aid and clothing and all those kind of things, and sports and that, depending on the age of the kids. And what seems fair in terms of earnings. And, if you're earning 50,000 and I'm earning 20,000, can't expect us to pay 50-50 because it's just impossible. So realistically, what is each one able to and can afford to pay? And then as the kid grows and goes through those different age milestones, so like 10 years old, 15 years old, 18, 21, etc., to agree on, how are we going to manage things like pocket money, things like age-appropriate decisions. So, for example, cell phones, type of education, so private school versus university, etc. And you're going to have to check in with each other, pretty much like an annual financial review, in terms of maintenance and stuff for the rest of the year, and what's obviously relative to inflation and stuff like that. And it really is about the two of you showing children, because your children are still looking up to you as the role models here. They are still looking up to you, and they will model their behavior on your behavior as to how the two of you manage situations. And so it's about the two of you presenting a united front, being on the same page and backing each other, because let's be honest, kids are not stupid. And if they can see that you're not aligned, they will find that gap to try and play one against the other. And they will go, oh, but mom bought me this or did this. And, oh, well, dad takes me here and takes me there. And they will start playing you one against the other. Kids, it's normal for them to test the boundaries and push the boundaries. That's why it's important for the two of you as co-parents to be on the same page and to back each other and be aligned in your decisions, so that kids know the boundaries and they know where they stand. And part of it is to have that annual review, or quarterly or 6 monthly, depending on what you want to agree on, as to, obviously as your kid grows, their needs are potentially going to change. And with that, potentially the cost is going to change. and how do we then adjust it accordingly, like you do with your financial planning.
Paula, we've been asked here, should couples assist each other to pay off their debts? What is fair in assisting each other? Should one partner find themselves, say, in financial trouble due to a job loss, or perhaps they're just bad with money? How do we do that and do that in a I don't know, sensible way? I want to put in, add to that, because I've got the quantitative answer to that, but what does the heart say, and how should we handle this?
Well, at the end of the day, a relationship or a marriage is a partnership. And a partnership is you are in this till death do us part. Well, that's what your wedding vows say. And if you are married or if you are cohabitating, you've committed to live together. And part of that is managing money and managing expenses and finances. And part of that is debt. So it would depend on what the debt is. If the debt is something like a house or a car, those kind of essential items, I suppose, I would call them essential items, then, you know, if you can step in and help out, or you have to because perhaps you've lost your job or something, you've had to take a salary cut, yes. Sometimes you are there for your partner and other times it's the other way around. But when you average it out, it seems fair. If your partner is being irresponsible with their money and they are racking up debt, is it your responsibility to pay off their debt? No, because you're not teaching them how to be responsible with their money. You are rescuing them, you are saving them, or you are co-creating the situation. You are causing them to be more dependent on you because you keep rescuing them. You're not allowing them to take ownership and responsibility for their actions and their behavior. And this is where that whole, I don't want to call it tough love, but you may have to put down a boundary and be very, very firm and assertive as to where you will and won't help, but be very aware on the impact on you in terms of credit ratings and credit scores, because it can impact you, and it would obviously depend on how you are married in or out of community of property, etc.
Yeah, well, you've covered everything. I was going to add that part there. So if you're married in community of property, you need to start having some really tough conversations. It's that tough love, as Paula said, because that's going to affect you and hurt your credit scores. And ultimately, you're liable for some of that debt too. So you want to make sure that's in line. And then, yeah, find the balance. I mean, if it's something out of their circumstance, like a job loss, and maybe their debt is on a car, then you've only got the one car for the family. Well, it's probably better to help pay for the car and keep it. Then it gets repossessed and you can't get another one. But yeah, it's definitely a tough one to have. Paula, one more here coming through. How do we discuss and draw the line with black tax and balancing building with a partner and still honoring those obligations?
Yeah, sure. Black tax is a big one, and it's a topic that comes up often when I'm working with couples, because you know, on the one hand, there can be a lot of resentment around black tax as to, like, when is enough enough, because I feel I've paid my dues, and then, you know, the cultural nuances coming in with this, in that there's an expectation from whoever it might be, the parents or the elders, that, you know, you have to provide because we've sacrificed everything to give you education and get you started in life. And it can be a very tough conversation to have. But I think, you know, you have to be able to sit down with them and realistically say, and I think this is, maybe there's an educational role here around, there's only so much money, and money can only go so far. And you want me to pay for all of these things, but these are my responsibilities that I have to pay for, and therefore I can only contribute so much from black tax. And I always like to encourage the couples that I work with to, how can you help your people become less dependent on you by helping them become more independent financially? So how can they start contributing financially in little ways, whether it's baking cakes, for example, or part-time work, or caretaking others. You know, everybody has a skill of some sort that we can capitalize or use to contribute. And so if they can't contribute financially, maybe they can do, things like looking after children and babysitting or some other way of giving back and contributing. But it can be a very touchy subject. And I know a lot of people struggle when it comes to the black tax and the expectations there.
Yeah, it is a very difficult one, and I'm still learning lots about it. And I enjoy the conversations I have with my clients that are supporting others. And I know black tax is a massive one, but there's many couples and families across all the race lines that are looking after and supporting people. And exactly that, and it's what you've just alluded to, is the pot is only so big. And we still need to look after ourselves and our family, our direct family, so maybe it's children and spouse. So we unfortunately have to limit what we can use to support others. And again, courageous conversation has to apply.
I think it's often because we get caught up in the emotion of the situation.
Yeah.
We feel obliged, we feel guilty, we feel shamed, we feel resentful, we feel angry, and we get caught up in the emotion of the situation. And understandably so, it's family. It's flesh and blood and, all of those things. So it is difficult to have those conversations and to push back and say no. We feel bad about saying no. But you have to look after yourself first and foremost, and your own credit worthiness and your own and financial obligations before you can look after others. And if you're stretching yourself beyond what you are capable of, you are just going to end up digging yourself into an even deeper, darker hole. And it's not going to help anybody, because then you can't provide for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, Paula, I think we've had an amazing session. Is there any other questions from those of you attending, either for tonight or some suggestions on what you'd like us to cover in future sessions in the new year?
Yes, that's Ipsana. You say yes. Yes, tell us what you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you. You're welcome to unmute or just type it in the chat group.
I think something I'll touch on while we wait is this topic comes up a lot with regards to school fees. Should you pay them the whole year ahead in one big lump sum? That, obviously, if you've got the budget for that's great. Look at what discount the school might be offering you. And unfortunately, budgets have been pinched for next year. So there's not a whole great deal. So my daughter's school gave a 3% discount. Now, if I leave that money in my money market account, I earn 7%. So I'd rather leave that there and pay off the school fees and get a better return on my money. But look at it on each situation. And also don't forget, from a school fee point of view, it's not only that, it's perhaps the extramurals, it's the different uniforms through the seasons, it's the sports kit. So factor all of that into your costing when you think of school fees and what you need to support your children and their futures.
Yeah, definitely. I see we have a question, and this also comes up quite often, this question. Any advice on a young couple that is new to the working world and want to live together but not yet getting married? Absolutely. You have to have important conversations before you move in together.
Yes.
Some of them we've touched on already, but basically the process would be understanding what you both earn in terms of your income, because that'll determine what you can afford in terms of renting or buying a house. If you are renting a house, same process applies in terms of, are you going to have individual accounts and then a joint bank account to cover the household expenses? So you both pay money into that joint account and that covers the household expenses and you retain your individual accounts. If you're buying a property together, obviously you would need to look at what deposit can you afford, what is the bracket that you can afford to look in, which area do you want to go to live in, and how is it going to be relative to each other's jobs and from a commuting point of view, because that can come up as an issue down the line if one person is spending an hour or so in traffic and the other person is 5 minutes from home. Also in terms of, and you can touch more on the money stuff, Terence, but I'm going to touch on the emotional stuff. Are you aligned in terms of things like values, culture, traditions, beliefs, spirituality, money? How are you going to resolve conflict? How are you going to deal with it, because you are going to have conflict? What are your career aspirations, so you know how to be there for each other and support each other from a career perspective? Family aspirations, do you want children? Don't you want children? Because down the line, you can't turn around and go, oh, but you never told me you didn't want children, and I do, because that can cause big issues. And what are your deal breakers? Most importantly, deal breakers are things like, for example, cheating. What does cheating look like in your world versus my world? Is it the fact that you've done the deed with somebody, or is it the fact that you're just texting somebody behind my back? That's a deal breaker. So that you know very clearly where you stand with each other, because that creates the boundaries that protects you and each other and your relationship from everybody else.
That covers so much, Paula. It's definitely that. It's making sure that that foundation is important, all those type of conversations. Obviously, my side is the money side. Have a household budget, know exactly who's going to pay for what. And like you've said, it doesn't have to be 50-50. Make it equitable, make it fair. And then it doesn't always sound as much fun because we love each other, and that's why we're moving in together, and things will last forever. But there's something called a cohabitation agreement. Put the stuff together. I know it's horrible, but there's been many cases where it's all been, sunshine and roses, and then one says, I've had enough, and moves out. And now the person left behind has to carry the full lease. And who knows who bought the fridge and the lounge suite and things like that. So document things. And that also plays an important role later, is hopefully there is then marriage or it's permanent union. And if you're going the anti-nuptial route, you now have a list of who owns what, should you want to exclude that from a joint marriage. But it's having those critical conversations. And I found having them with my clients, and what I've done personally is I don't have it at home. We go out somewhere that's kind of neutral ground, go for a picnic, go in the park, go on the beach, and have those chats where neither party feels they've got slightly more power than the other, and then have the confidence to speak freely and openly.
Yeah, important to have those conversations early on in your relationships, because that will also give you an idea of whether you are on the same page and aligned and compatible or not. Otherwise, it could cause lots of heartache down the line. And
have them often. Don't just think you're going to have them now and move in and that's it. Chat often. Just keep chatting to each other. It's the best conversations you can have if that's the right partner for you.
Absolutely. So I have a question around mental health. How do we get to an understanding of prioritizing it as individuals and not being offensive, and making the other understand if you've already started on the journey? Yeah, this can be a difficult one in couples where one person has started on a journey around personal growth and development, or taking care of their own health and well-being, whether it's mental health or physical health and eating and lifestyle and that kind of thing, and your partner is not on the same page as you. It can cause some conflict because you may want to impose your ideas on your partner that they must now start living this healthy, active lifestyle, or going to gym, or meditating, or church, or whatever it might be. And your partner's not there yet. They're not ready for it. Or it could be that they, you've come so far down the line that you've grown apart instead of growing together. And at the end of the day, you cannot change your partner. You can only change yourself. You are not responsible for your partner's growth or your partner's development. You can certainly encourage them. You can support them. You can be their biggest fan and cheerleader, but they have got to want to do the work themselves. And so it's important around how you approach it. You can use the us, we, ours language, very important, because it says we're in this together, I'm by your side, I'm there every step of the way. But if you start keeping score, you haven't been to gym today, or you haven't been to gym this week, or you've just eaten junk, you've had 3 pizzas this week, it can cause resentment and anger, and it can become defensive and toxic. And You can lead by example, by taking care and showing the benefits of you being in a healthy, good space mentally, physically, emotionally. And hopefully your partner will get on board with you. But if they don't, and it gets to the point where it is now becoming, it's affecting your own mental health and well-being, you may have to make that very hard and fast decision that you've got to look after yourself.
Yeah, and I experienced a wonderful program Paula has, and my partner was extremely supportive of it and my attendance, and I've seen tremendous leaps and bounds in personal growth, family growth, business development. So it's to do that, have the conversation, show that, and then hopefully they do support you. And yeah, the conversation, I think everything always works down to conversations, and making sure that it's not pointing fingers.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope that's answered your question. That's the person that asked that question. If anybody has any other questions that you would like us to ask, or anything else, other topics you'd like us to chat about in upcoming webinars, please do. Now's your chance. Post in the chat group or to us individually. You've got our email addresses as well. You can pop us an email. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to know that we're adding value and that you are walking away with some great insights and tips from these sessions.
Yes. Awesome. Paula, that was lots of fun. I know I picked up on a few valuable tips. And I wish you and everybody.
I'm going to go and look at this app, and I'm going to go and plan my holiday now in my budget.
Good. And let us know how it goes. And also have fun in Cape Town.
I will do. And thanks to everybody for joining us. And we really enjoyed spending the afternoon with you. And if I don't speak to you, have a good Christmas and New Year or holidays. And we'll see you in the new year.
Take care.